All right. Hi, thanks for joining us. We are doing this live from the Psychotherapy Networker. I am Lynn Lyons. I am a psychotherapist and author. I specialize in anxiety. I'm here at the Symposium presenting this week. I am honored to be joined by Adam Smith. He is a congressman from the state of Washington. And Adam, we met because you sent me your book. And the book, the title of the book, why don't you say it?
Lost and Broken, my journey back from chronic pain and crippling anxiety.
Mm-hmm. So you sent it to me. We have a publisher in common. I started reading it and I couldn't stop reading it. We had a conversation on the phone and here we are in Washington, and I thought it would be a great opportunity for us to have this conversation. I found your story incredibly compelling and vulnerable, and something that on a personal level is really important for people to hear, and also from a larger sort of how mental health and treatment is working these days. So would you be willing to just talk a little bit about how this all happened?
Yeah, I mean, it was just something that happened to me in my life. I started having a real problem with debilitating anxiety back in 2013 when I guess I was, 48 years old, 47. And I had had some challenges before that in my life, but nothing that ever rose to the level of basically something I didn't feel like I could deal with. So I had the anxiety in 2013 and battled that for about a year. And then in 2014, I started to have physical pain. My hips started going bad, knee and all that. And so for about 6 years, I was fighting and struggling my way through. How do I deal with the anxiety? Do I deal with the chronic pain? Seeing a bunch of therapists, physical therapists, hip surgeons, taking a bunch of different medications. It was a 6-year ordeal. And I wrote the book really because I want people to learn from that experience. I think chronic pain, anxiety, huge problems all across the country. As I got into this, I sort of discovered I'm not alone.
You are not alone.
Right.
You are not alone.
So I hope this can be a guide for how people can seek help, because if I have one overarching message, you can find help. You can get better. It's not as easy as it should be, but there is a path. So I want to get that message out.
Yeah. And that was one of the things that really drew me into your story, because you were hitting the points of the things that I talk about all the time, which one is that what's the kind of help that people need? How are people going down the wrong path with this thing called anxiety, and certainly with chronic pain? I've said this to you, you're somebody who has access to resources. You have good insurance, I'm sure. You have people that you can talk to and ask.
I have a great support network.
Correct.
Not everybody does.
Correct. And it was still hard for you.
Yeah.
And you still got bad advice, and you still felt confused a lot of the time. You still felt probably embarrassed, alone, all the things that people feel when they're struggling with this. What do you think was the key to you, for you, the key that sort of turned the corner in terms of how you're doing?
Ultimately, the key for me was persistence. I refused to give up, and I refused to accept the reality that this was just as good as it was going to get. I mean, I had profound doubt on that subject. I mean, I had days when I was like, what are you doing? But I never stopped thinking that I shouldn't feel this way, that I should be able to get better. And eventually I found a therapist who helped me, and I found a muscle activation therapist who helped me on the physical side. But it took me forever to find that person and to understand how those people, I should say, and to understand how this worked. And that's what it just seems to me that focusing just on the anxiety side, the psychotherapy, the therapists out there, the mental health professionals.
Yeah. Psychotherapists,
mental health professionals, basically, should be able, if you come in with a problem, to more quickly get you on that path. And I think there are a number of impediments in the way our healthcare system is structured and in the way mental health professionals approach their job that we need to change.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I think that one of the frustrations for me in the field that I have been in for 33 years now is the time that is spent, people going from therapist to therapist, talking to people. I train a lot of therapists, and anxiety in particular is not that complicated if you are a specialist in it. We know how it works. We know what it
That's
does.
kind of what I figured when I was diving into it. It's like,
That's right.
I don't know anything about this.
Yeah.
It's not my
Somebody
field,
will know.
but I'm going to these people. They
Yeah.
ought to know. And,
Yeah.
and surprisingly, I don't think it's so much they didn't know. They really don't do a good job of communicating it.
Okay.
Of getting
So,
you on that path.
It's interesting because when parents, I work a lot with kids, and when parents bring their kids to see me, and maybe they've been to many therapists and they're sort of in that place with you, they're persistent, but filled with doubt.
Yeah.
Right. And I will say, what can I offer you? The thing they say most often is just tell me what to do. They just want instructions. Yeah.
I'm only laughing because I how many times did I say, can you fix me? And how are you going to do it? I mean,
How?
Right.
Yeah. And
I think there is a path, and this
Yes.
better than I do. I think there's better upfront treatment. One of the things that we talked about this before we get on the air here, so much of it now is just about giving you drugs,
correct.
which undermines your ability to get better.
Yeah.
It just doesn't help you. It is the easy button for therapy out there
Yeah.
that you assume, as I think you said to me earlier, everyone assumes, well, if there's just something wrong with me, if I take this drug, it fixes it, then it's fine. When
Yeah.
in fact, the mind and the body have an incredible capacity to heal themselves if you are patient and work through it. And once you introduce drugs into it, it skews that horribly.
Yeah. So I'm so glad that you're saying this. This is a controversial stance right now in this country. And as you and I were both talking about, that saying this out loud and talking about this with young people, we get blowback about that. Would you be willing to talk a little bit
Absolutely.
about what happened with you, in particular with
Well,
benzodiazepines?
look, what happened? I had my first bout of uncontrollable anxiety in 2005, so 8 years before the other one, and I didn't know what the heck was going on. And I went and saw a psychiatrist, and he gave me, at that time, some benzodiazepines, and it had been, I don't know, a week maybe of uncontrollable anxiety, and so he offered that up. I took it, and one of the deceptive problems with benzodiazepines is in the short term, they work.
Oh, they really do.
Oh my God. It was like, I'm normal again. I'm human.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when I came back in 2013, I spent like a month trying to go to therapy. It's like, well, it worked last time. Just give me the drugs.
Yeah.
But so it's just what they want to do for you to get you through it. And the same, frankly, with antidepressants. I was on Celexa for a while. It's a long story about that. Didn't really help me that I could see.
Yeah.
But it was very quickly to be put on it to think that that's going to solve the problem. And then you're just trapped with the drug and the anxiety, and it doesn't actually help the overwhelming majority of people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly true. And I think, the way that I have been trained, the way that I practice, the way that I talk about this at this point is that it's really about learning skills. It's about figuring out how you operate. We were having a conversation again before we jumped on this about this concept of taking responsibility. It's not about blame, but it's about figuring out what you need to do to help yourself.
To make yourself better.
Yeah.
And I think just, and I've struggled with this concept with my children is we all feel emotions. And I'm a very sensitive person. I always have been, particularly when I was younger, before I had some professional success and got a little bit of confidence, somebody said something or I did something wrong. I said something wrong. Someone got upset. It would be and you would feel it. And that is real. Okay.
Yes,
that emotional feeling of anxiety or upset or whatever, it's incredibly real. But the thing is, you can train your brain so that you don't have to chase that feeling.
Right.
My son says, I can't change the way I feel. I say, yes. Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
Okay. It's not necessarily easy, but if you're going to be healthy mentally, you have to understand that.
Yeah.
You can get that basic training of, catastrophizing.
Correct.
It's something we talk about all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, and I used to do this. I'd make one mistake and I'd be convinced, I'm going to lose my campaign. I'm going to, I'd walk down that road, and it's it is the most real feeling in the world. Okay. But you can step back and go, well, wait a second. What am I really doing here?
Right.
And you can train your brain, first of all, to not let that emotion take you down the rabbit hole. And then the more you do it, the better when you're hit with that, the more quickly you cannot be debilitated by it. You can be trained in that way.
Yeah. So you should step over into my line of work. But what you're saying, okay, so this warms the cockles of my heart because you are talking about this in a way that is about developing the skills to recognize the patterns that put you at risk.
Yeah.
So you just listed a few of them. You're highly sensitive,
Right.
right? So things stick. You have a sticky brain, which means that you don't let go of things. You catastrophize, and I bet you ruminate, right? So something happens and you go over it and over it and over it.
I used to jokingly call myself the uncrowned king of regret. Okay. I would go, I'd be like, oh, why? Oh, if I just hadn't said that, if I'd just done this, everything would be fine.
Yeah.
And you can be taught to get through that. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't say the other thing that's there is you also have to have a healthy narcissism.
Yeah.
Narcissism doesn't get a good word for obvious reasons, but a healthy narcissism. And that is you have to believe that you are personally worthy as a person, regardless of what you do.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't have that. That's the other thing that therapists didn't tell me. I assumed, I'm a reasonably successful person. I'm competitive. I'm not the type of person who's like, oh, I'm not worthy.
You didn't walk around thinking you were a loser.
Right. Exactly. That's a more straightforward way of putting it. But still, because of my childhood and because of things, I was adopted. There was a whole lot of things that went into that. I really had fundamental doubts. And I felt like to establish that self-worth, I had to be successful. Yeah. I had to win. Yeah. I had to be the best. Yeah. Because every day I was trying to prove, I thought, to the world, but really to myself, that I was worthy of existing. Yeah. And that baseline thing. And then you learn how to make your mind work. But
so there's the other pattern that you've just described. Yeah. See, you're a really good example of good therapy. I can tell you've had good therapy because you are talking about these patterns that are the primary risk factors for developing anxiety and depression and chronic pain, by the way. So catastrophizing, ruminating, the global thinking that you're going to prove yourself. And if you make one mistake, all bets are off.
Well, and the funny, when I went and saw the therapist who finally helped me, and he was like therapist number 12, after a while, that was the first thing he said to me is, you don't think you have a right to exist. And I thought he was insane. Thought he was insane. Yeah. But then, it's funny. So I had that whole thing. It's like, oh God, this is what this guy's telling me. This another one.
How's this going to help?
Right. Yeah. But then, as I say in the book, I thought about it. I woke up every morning, 5 years, 6 years. And the first thing I said to myself was, I hate myself. Oh. And that's the way I felt. Because what I was thinking in my mind, I was just thinking, I'm not succeeding. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Ugh, what kind of an idiot am I? And I didn't make the connection between that and an underlying significant mental health problem. Right.
And then the anxiety and the chronic pain just feed on that because now you feel like there's something wrong with you.
Right.
You're in this.
Failing.
You're failing. You're hiding it from people. Right. You're trying to do your job and not let people know what's going on. I mean, you said to me an interesting thing with the chronic pain, which is interesting. It was easier to talk about how badly your back hurt. Right. You said a funny thing. You said people don't say like, hey, how's the mental illness going?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's what people to this day. I mean, because I went through this for 6 years and I still work with a lot of these people. There's a lot of people when I meet with them and I hadn't seen them for 6 months. Oh, how's your back? Yeah. I mean, it's just a reflexive thing. And I have to tell them it's all good. I got it fixed. But but nobody comes in and says, I know you're really struggling with anxiety and mental health problems. How's that going?
Right.
And it feeds on that notion that you have to hide that.
Yes. And because anxiety is all about avoidance, because anxiety is all about doubt, because anxiety is all about catastrophizing, this is how this thing spirals down. Do you think at some point in your journey, do you think that you would have described yourself as depressed?
Well, it's funny. Well, it's not funny, haha, but it's funny, ironic.
Interesting.
When I was 25, as both my parents had passed away at that point. I didn't know I was adopted even at that point. It was like 6 months later that I found out.
After they died.
Correct. Yeah.
Wow.
So
your therapist had interesting conversations with you about that too.
Yeah. So one of my therapists, as I outlined in the book, was like, wow, you're fascinating. It's like, I'm not really trying to present myself as a zoo animal here. I kind of like you to help me.
Right.
But I had like 3 or 4 months of depression. Yeah. Depression is very different than anxiety.
Yes.
Literally. And it's like, and I'm always I had anxiety. I was upbeat, but for like 3 or 4 months and my life was good at that point. Yeah. No complaints, but it's like nothing interested me. And, but it only happened then. What I had later was pure anxiety. I never really had depression. I was just, it was just anxiety.
Yeah. And anxiety is really oftentimes an energized system. So when we talk to people and they're experiencing anxiety, you have a lot of energy. You get a lot done.
Yeah.
You are in action. And I think that what happens a lot of times when people are trying to learn how to deal with their anxiety is that there's a lot of emphasis on you need to calm down. You need to relax, right? That wasn't going to fit with you.
Right.
Somebody telling you to calm down, right.
Right. Well, and that's the biggest takeaway from this, because one of the final hurdles for me when they were walking me through all this was, you're telling me I have to be a different person.
Right.
Okay. And granted, I got anxiety. I'm in a horrible place right now, but being a high stress, I mean, that's what's sort of made me successful.
Yeah.
But what I discovered was, you can do that. You can still be a high energy, high accomplishment work. As I describe it, basically, and I say this in the book, I said, it was the same. I just say without the anger and self-flagellation.
Yeah.
And that's really all it is.
Yeah.
I mean,
and without the ruminating.
Exactly.
So without
that's sort of what I mean by self-flagellation.
Right.
It's like, it's like I beat myself up constantly.
Right.
You don't have to beat yourself up constantly to work hard.
Right. And the ability and what you've done, and this is what I try and teach people all the time, sometimes successfully, is that your thoughts are your thoughts.
Yeah.
And I don't even care specifically what you were beating yourself up about.
Right.
For me, it's really the pattern of, after I do my day, I'm going to spend a period of time going over things in that self-flagellating way.
Yeah. Well, and look, and this is where meditation helped me. Meditation took me forever to figure out. And I don't meditate in the classic sense of the word. You sit around for 20 minutes. But when people started describing it, that what meditation is about is not chasing thoughts.
Correct.
Teaching your mind to just notice it, as they say.
Yeah.
And at first I was like, but it's really true. You don't have to clear your head completely.
Correct.
And be like some perfect Buddhist monk.
Yes. You
just have to know, okay, I noticed that. I'm going to let it go.
Right.
Just go take some portion of your day.
Yeah. Stepping back, becoming
even a minute.
Yeah. Even a minute.
And just say, today, I'm not, for the next minute or two, I'm not going to chase whatever comes into my head.
Yeah.
It's helpful.
Yeah. And that's what I tell people a lot. It is not about sitting down and doing a 30-minute meditation. It might be while you're sitting on a plane, waiting to get on the plane. It might be while the commercial is on during the Celtics game.
Yeah.
How do you step back and observe your patterns that consistently get you into trouble?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and I think all this glory, the biggest thing, the message that I want to try to get out there is what we talked about at the first is help is available. And I worry, when I first started writing the book 3 years ago during the pandemic, at any rate, the stigma of mental health was a big part of what I wanted to talk about. And I think that's still an issue.
Yeah.
It's still hard. If you have a mental health problem, you're afraid to tell people because how you'll be judged. But I think we're getting over that stigma a little bit.
Yeah.
But now we can't you're not addressing mental health if you're just saying, look, I'm just broken.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can do about it.
There's nothing I can do.
And that number one biggest message is there is, in fact, something you can do about it. And let's try to figure out how to better help people.
And as we're wrapping this up, one of the things that you and I said before we were talking is that we both believe in hope.
Absolutely.
Right? And persistence. And the message that we want people to get, particularly young people, is that there are skills that you can learn. This is I say all the time, it's like running a marathon. It's not complicated, but it's hard work.
Right. Look, just understand this. The mind and the body can get better.
Yep.
Even I always use the example. I have no artistic talent whatsoever.
Yeah.
Okay. But if someone took me and tried to teach me how to play the piano for 2 years, I'd get better at it.
Yes, you would.
I wouldn't be very good, but I would get better.
Yes, you would.
Okay. So mind, body can get better.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah. Well, I so appreciate you joining me. I am, the way you talk about this is the way that if I were working with you, if you were my client and you were going out walking around talking about this like this, I would say, oh, hallelujah. So I really appreciate you putting yourself out there and using your voice to get people's attention about this. So thank you so much.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah.